I think we are live. All right, all right, all right. How's it going, everybody? Tim Streifler here with Divi Life, and I am super excited. We are live. It's been a long time since I've gone live here. We are live on Facebook Live. We are live on YouTube Live, and I'm super excited. Again, it's been a long time, so bear with me. I'm using some new software here, so if things are a little laggy or choppy, let me know. And do me a favor, if you're watching live right now, go ahead and comment live in the chat. So whether you're on YouTube, you're on Facebook, comment live. And then if you are watching the replay later, type in replay. Again, that just helps me know who's kind of watching when and all that. So again, I'm going to wait a couple minutes here as people kind of start to join live, and then we're going to dive in. So we are doing the very first Divi Live quick tip. So I'm hoping to do these more often and get into a routine where I'm doing them 1 to 2 times a week. But baby steps, we're going to start small. Hey, Carlos, thanks for joining. So as people join here, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit an idea what the tutorial is about. So today we're going to cover 5 Divi workflow features that you should be using and when to use them. And so I'm going to dive into the topic here in a second and talk to you about kind of the idea behind it and then what we're going to be covering. But as people are joining live, let me know. Type live if you're watching live, or type replay if you're watching this later. Because as Facebook and YouTube have their live platforms, they automatically get added later. So yeah, thanks so much for joining, you guys. Super excited to be here. So as I mentioned, people are kind of joining in, so I'm repeating myself a little bit here. But this is a very first Divi Life live quick tip, and so I'm hoping to do these more often and get in the routine of doing these somewhat regularly. So the goal is once a week and then maybe ramp up to multiple times a week. But we're going to cover anything from different Divi features, walking through different things, some of my products, Divi Life products as well. And so as we kind of unpack these different things, we'll hopefully kind of get feedback from you guys of different things you'd like me to cover and stuff like that. Maybe bring on some guests as well. But in today's live quick tip, we are covering 5 Divi workflow features that you should be using and when to use them. And so Divi is the most popular premium theme in the world, which makes it the most popular page builder in the world. And there's lots of competitors out there that have really great products. But I think the one thing that really sets apart Divi from the other page builders out there is the workflow features. So Divi calls them efficiency features. I like to call them workflow features because when you are building a lot of websites, you kind of develop a workflow that helps you be more efficient. But extremely, extremely powerful tools. And these are things like extend styles and copy paste, find and replace. But basically, they can drastically help you create websites faster. And so the ones that we're going to be covering here are the ones that I find to be the most helpful and that can speed up your workflow the most. Now, you might be hearing some of these and you're like, yeah, I know that exists. And so the point of this isn't to share stuff that's necessarily new, although for some of you it will be new. But if you're like me and you're building websites every day in Divi, you develop a lot of habits, a lot of workflow habits, and so you might have a certain way of doing things, and as you're clicking along, you're used to doing things a certain way, and then Divi comes out with a new feature, and you might look at it and say, hey, that's awesome. That I can see how that would help you build websites faster with Divi, but you are kind of ingrained in the way that you're used to doing things, and so it's hard to break those habits and incorporate new things, even when you know they're going to help you speed things up. And so I'm hoping that kind of show you using them and show you kind of real-world examples, you can kind of start to incorporate them into your own workflow. And then for some of you might be like, I had no idea that was in Divi, because with all the features they've been putting out the last couple of years, it's hard to keep up. And you might have a busy season and they might come out with a few features and you don't even notice that they're there. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So in a second, you should see my screen. Okay, 1 second here. And bear with me, I'm using some new software, so I'm still kind of getting the hang of things here. Let me know in the comments here if you can see my screen. Just type yes, and that'll make sure I'll know how quickly it is. And there's always a little bit of a lag with live videos, but this will help me know kind of how long that lag is. So let me know if you can see my screen here. You should see the Divi Agency child theme. This is one of the child themes from Divi Life, my company. And so I'm going to be using it here in the example. Carlos says yes, he can see the screen. Thank you, Carlos. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the visual builder. Yeah, thanks, Larry, for letting me know. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to enable the visual builder here. And by the way, I'm using Flywheel Local, and so you'll notice everything is super fast, and it's because it's all contained on my local machine, which is a great way to build websites with Divi rather than building on a live server. And so I think I'm going to do another tutorial on that in the future, but highly recommend checking out Flywheel Local. Thank you, Jessica, Vladimir, for chiming in. Appreciate that. And so if you're just now joining us, we are doing the very first Divi Life Live Divi Quick Tip. And so I'm going through 5 Divi workflow features that you should be using and how to use them. And so the first one I'm going to cover here is copy and paste. Now, copy and paste itself has actually been a part of Divi since the very beginning, being able to copy modules and paste them or clone rows. And even from Divi 1.0, it was a super, super quick way to kind of speed up your workflow, because you knew, okay, if I want a blurb here and I have it just the way I want them, I want another one here, you can duplicate that and then customize and make changes to the second one. And so that's nothing new. However, what is new is the ability to copy and paste styles. And so, copying and pasting modules is great. You can duplicate it there. That's nothing new. But one thing I do want to show you is the ability to copy the entire module and without having to right-click. And we're going to get into some of the keyboard shortcuts here in a second. But just by hitting Command-V, being able to copy the entire module, hovering over the little new module ball there, hitting Command-V. So that's pretty cool. But that's not really the exciting stuff. The exciting stuff is being able to spend a lot of time customizing a module and then being able to paste those styles across multiple modules. So I'm going to show you that. So before I copy the styling, let me make some changes to the styling and kind of mimic a real-world situation. So say, for example, you're using my child theme here, Divi Agency, and you're like, okay, these blurbs look good, but I want to make them a little bit custom. And so you go in here, and let's say you want to add a drop shadow. Ever since Divi added these drop shadows, I've been digging them. They're awesome. Great way to kind of spice up the page. And so, okay, got the drop shadow. I'm going to need to add some spacing here. So I'm going to add some padding. Okay, that looks pretty good, but I want to add a border. So as you can see, this is kind of taking a little bit of time to do just one of these. Let's make it rounded corners. Okay, that looks pretty good. I like that quite a bit. Actually, I'm going to go back and change to this box shadow, make it a little more unique. So that looks pretty good right there. I like that, but that took a couple seconds. Even though I had planned out exactly what I wanted to do when preparing for this tutorial, it still took me a bit of time to get it just right. And so to go in and do that for each one is a pain, but luckily Divi lets you copy and paste styles, which is awesome. And so I'm going to show you that here. I'm going to go copy module styles, and then I'm going to go paste module styles. And then if you want to get even quicker than that, then you can actually use a keyboard shortcut, which is Command-Option-V. And so you can paste the styling without even having to right-click on the module. So that's pretty cool. However, it's not great because this breaks into a different line. And so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to Design. I'm going to change the title text font. Let's move this over here. And I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Let's see. Maybe just for the fun of it, I'll add a shadow. No, that just doesn't look good. Okay, I'm going to do no shadow there. So I'm going to leave that there. And that looks pretty good. I like that. And so what I can actually do is I can right-click, and I'm going to show you the next one. So the first one, the first Divi workflow feature I showed you is copy and paste, specifically copy and pasting styles, which can drastically speed up your workflow. Now, the next one is extend styles, which extend styles is similar, but it can be used in a slightly different way. So say, for example, I want to extend this. I can just right-click. This is the one that I customized, so I'm going to right-click and go to Extend Blurb Styles. Now, I can go and I can extend this to the entire page. And you can see these changed right away. The text got smaller. And you can see I have these blurbs down here. Well, I didn't necessarily want to change these blurbs, so I'm going to go and I'm going to undo that. So I could hit Command Z, but I'm just going to go into the Times editing history so you can visually see what I'm doing here. And so now that's changed. So I'm going to go right-click again, Extend Blurb Styles, and then I'm going to go to just this row. And that way it won't affect the other blurbs that I have lower down on the page. And so that can be a really easy way to extend the styling across to other modules. And so you might be asking yourself, okay, well, when do I use copy and paste styles and when do I use extend styles? Because there's definitely some overlap. And you're exactly right if you're thinking that. And that was kind of the first thing that I thought of when I saw them come out with extend styles, is what's the difference between that and copy and paste styles. So while there is overlap, I would say the difference is whether or not you want to, within just one click, change a bunch of things at once. So say you have a lot of blurbs that you want to be identical, and you're kind of fine-tuning it as you go along. Well, extending styles to all the blurbs on the page allows you to do it with just 2 clicks, rather than having to go and paste into each blurb the different styling. And so it can be a great way to kind of globally change something, where copy and paste styles will allow you to have a little more control, because maybe you wanted to change the styling for just this one and this one. Well, copy and paste styling allows you that control on a finer grain. And so sometimes if you have a lot going on the page and you don't want to mess it up and you're a little nervous to do extend styles, well, having copy and paste styles at your fingertips is a great way to kind of make sure that you don't change something without realizing it. Because the danger with extend styles is you might think that you might not realize that you have blurbs somewhere else on the page that you forgot about, and then all of a sudden you change the whole page, and then getting back to the way you had it before is a real pain. And so copy and paste styles kind of gives you that control. So those are the first two: copy and paste, extend styles. And then the third one I want to show you is find and replace. Find and replace is really cool, and you might be saying, okay, well, you're adding in a third way to change styling. How does this fit into copy and paste and extend styles? Well, find and replace is good if you want to change just one thing on the entire page. And so again, it's more of that kind of global page level type of editing, opposed to when you're copy and pasting stuff, you're kind of doing on a finer detailed level. And so say in this scenario, you're building this website and you're like, you know what? I don't like this green. I want to change this green. And you can see the green is used throughout the page here. So we go down here, it's down here in the pricing modules as well. This call to action here, it's used quite a bit on the page. And so rather than going in and changing each one individually, you can do it on a grander scale. And so I'm going to go into the design settings, and I'm going to go into button 1. And so this is where I would change the background color for button 1. But instead of just changing it, I'm going to right click and go find and replace. And so it automatically has that color there that's the one that I want to find, and I'm going to replace it with whatever I select here. And so I'm going to make it kind of a teal color. Now, if you wanted to take that color and then say I have that same green used in other ways, maybe in a border color, or you have it for a header text color, well, then you can check this box, and anytime it sees this first color, it's going to go ahead and change it. So even if it's outside of a button background color, it will change it anytime you see that. And so I'm not going to do that for this example, but you could easily do that. And I'm going to hit replace. And it actually takes a second, so that's normal. So if you see nothing happening, it's because it's looking at everything on the page, and so it can take a second for it to find and replace everything. And so you can see here it changed this one, but it also went and changed this one here. And then go down to the pricing panel, change the buttons here, this call to action here. Now, in reality, this doesn't look that great, and so I'm probably going to undo that. Okay, so I'm back to where I was. So that's how you would do find and replace. So another example, say you have a client that says, you know what, I love this font, or I love the website that you built for me, but I really want you to, make the text a little more like a handwritten font. Which we know as designers that handwritten fonts are kind of lame, don't look very good, but for some reason clients tend to love them. And so say you wanted to change the font for everything on the site at once, well, rather than going into each module, you can do that here using find and replace. And so come in here to the title font, right click, and then find and replace. And then I just have it set as default. And so if you had it, each one specifically, then you'd have to do each one. If you had font selected for each module individually, then it's going to be a little bit trickier. But I have them all set as the same, so it makes it easier. So you can do within this page, in this section, this row, I'm going to do the entire page, and I'm going to say replace with, I'm going to replace with this one here. Where is it? Permanent marker, which again, this is a joke. I don't think anyone would actually want this because it's going to look horrible. And I'm going to go ahead and click this. So anytime the default font is used, it's going to replace with permanent marker. Because we all have those clients that are really nice people but don't have an eye for design, and they want something to look ridiculous, and so we have to fight them on it. But sometimes the client wins, and so you end up putting a horrible looking font on the entire site. And so, but you can easily do it using Divi's efficiency tools, using find and replace. You can replace all the fonts on the page with just a couple of clicks, which is pretty cool. Again, this looks terrible. Please don't use this font in this way on your site. It just doesn't look that great. But you can easily change it using find and replace. So that's pretty cool. So getting back here, 5 Divi workflow features that you should be using and when to use them. So we went over copy and paste, specifically copy and pasting styling, which is so powerful. And then using extend styles to be able to extend the styles of every blurb module or a blurb module that you spend a lot of times at styling, and extend that to every other blurb module on the page or within the row. And then we just looked at find and replace to be able to look at a specific color or a specific font, and then find and replace anytime that font or color is used with another thing, with another color or font. So those are the first 3 workflow features or efficiency tools that are built into Divi. The next one that I want to talk about is keyboard shortcuts. Now, Divi has a lot of keyboard shortcuts built in, and there's a few that I use, but there's so many that are there that I either forgot about, didn't know were there, that I could be using. And so to get to the keyboard shortcuts and actually see them listed out, you could click on this question mark in the bottom right hand corner next to the save button. That will bring up this, and then you hit keyboard shortcuts. However, the first keyboard shortcut you should learn is how to bring that up without having to use the mouse. So keyboard shortcuts are extremely fast and easy ways to speed up your workflow, but again, it kind of takes a little bit of practice, and you have to force yourself into creating those new habits so that they become second nature. And just like you would, use the mouse and, use the keyboard shortcuts become part of you, and they become an extension of you as part of the tool. And so the first keyboard shortcut you should learn is how to open up the help panel. And the way you do that is Shift ? And then if you keep holding Shift and hit Tab, it will tab over to the actual keyboard shortcut. So you can kind of do that in one motion. And so this will show you all the shortcuts here. So if you're like me and you don't have a photographic memory to where you can just look at something once and remember, then you're going to have to refer to these quite a bit as you're learning them and figuring out how to use them. And so there's a couple that I think you should definitely look at that are extremely helpful. And the first 3 here on the page are part of them. So undo, Command Z. So just like using Microsoft Word or most other apps, Photoshop, whatever, Command Z does the last action. So the last thing that you do, you can hit Command Z. And you can hit Command Z a couple times to kind of go through and undo multiple changes. And so usually, kind of in my opinion, if you have to hit Command Z more than twice, and go up into the editing history and then see what it is that you need to do. That's just a personal preference, a little quicker than hitting Command Z a bunch of times. But yeah, once you have this up, so the next one is save the page. So I do that often. That's kind of just rule of thumb, is save the page often, especially if you're working in like a local environment like this, you're not on a live site, and you just want to make sure everything is saved, so that if there's any computer malfunctions or anything like that, you won't lose any of the work. And so, so hitting save often is good, and then being able to just hit Command S really quickly can speed that up drastically. And so let's see here what the other ones I wanted to look at. Another really helpful one is hitting the escape key to close any modal. So it doesn't matter what modal you're in, if you're in a module, section, row, whatever, hitting escape will close it. Now, it used to be that if you hit the escape key and hadn't saved those changes, that you would lose anything. And so I would do that by accident sometimes, hit the escape key after I spent a lot of time customizing something, and then I would lose everything that I just customized. They've now fixed that, so escape actually saves it, and then it'll exit it. So if you make a bunch of changes and you're changing stuff around and then you hit escape, it will actually is the same thing as hitting the green check mark, where it used to be the same as hitting the red X. And so so that's something cool. And then if you didn't want to do that, well, then you can just hit undo. So yeah, the escape key is definitely a helpful one to learn. Now another one, now this is probably a view mode that a lot of people forget is there, and that's wireframe mode. Now, wireframe mode is kind of the block-based view of the builder that if you've been using Divi since the early days, this is kind of what you became familiar with. Now, when they released Divi 3.0, it was only the visual mode, and then they added this wireframe mode to kind of give you that block-based view, because sometimes it's easier, especially if you've gone in and properly labeled everything. So you have, main hero section, and then you have, service blurbs, and you kind of have them, okay, this is marketing services, this is Facebook ad, you have each service labeled and stuff. Well, then you can kind of visually see the page easily, kind of from a zoomed out view without, the actual design. And so you can easily get back and forth from here, but keyboard shortcuts are awesome. And so the keyboard shortcut for wireframe mode is Shift W. And so say, for example, you want to, kind of look at something from the wireframe view, we can just hit Shift W. It'll automatically go into wireframe mode, and it's going to go to the part of the page that you were at. And so it's not going to go to the top. It'll go to right where you're at. And then if you want to go back, you just hit Shift W again, and that'll take you right back to where you were. And so that's a super handy way to quickly go back and forth. And so sometimes the Visual Builder is awesome. It used to be kind of buggy back in the day, and it's come a long way. But sometimes you might be trying to click on a settings, and it's like, you hover and you're trying to click on it, and it's just not working, and you need to, figure out another way to get into that settings to customize that module. Well, going into wireframe mode is a great way to do that. So that's one of the ways. The other way is to turn on click mode. So right now we're on hover mode, which is the default setting for the Visual Builder. And so you can go and hover and then click. But as I mentioned, sometimes it can be a little bit hard, especially if you have, custom padding and negative margin, stuff like that. Well, you might be trying to get into the row settings if you have, all this padding removed. And you might be trying to get into the row, but instead the setting or the settings buttons for the section is showing up on top, and you're like trying to hover over to get into the row settings, and it's not working. It's extremely frustrating. Well, getting into click mode will make that possible. And so click mode, you can hit Command Shift plus C, and you can see now it looks a little bit different. So as I'm hovering, it's not showing the settings boxes unless you click on it. So I'm going to click on the module here, and then now it's showing me the little icons for the different settings. And then I can open that up. And so again, if you're in a place where maybe the modules are close together, or you have no padding or margin for the row and section, and you're trying to edit the section or row, you can get into click mode, and you get into click mode by clicking on doing the keyboard shortcut Command Shift plus C, and that will get it so you can, rather than hovering, you can click, and so that way you have more precision over what you're trying to look at. And so some people prefer this and keep it on here, and that's great. You can definitely do that. I kind of like the standard hover mode, and so I keep it on there and just go into click mode if I need to. And so if you're just now joining us, we are looking at 5 Divi workflow features that you should be using. And so we went through and looked at copy and paste styling. We looked at extend styles. We looked at find and replace. Now we're looking at keyboard shortcuts. We looked at a few of the my favorite ones here. But a couple other ones I want to share with you is copying and pasting an entire module. So we kind of touched on that in the beginning, but copying and pasting a module is really easy. So say you wanted to duplicate this. You could easily hit the clone button, but it's a little bit quicker to do Command C. So you hover, hit Command C, and then you just go Command V, Command V, Command V, Command V. So you have to hover over the little plus icon for the new module when you're hitting Command V. That way it knows that you're wanting to add a new module and where to put it. But yeah, super quick way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get back here. Okay, perfect. So that is copy and pasting modules. Again, using the keyboard shortcut, super, super easy. And then the next thing I want to show you is copy and paste styling. So we talked about how awesome it is to copy and paste styling in Divi. Well, using the keyboard shortcut makes it even easier. And so I'm going to make some changes here so that we can see what's going on and see what's getting changed. So I'm going to change the title text here. I'm going to change it to our favorite permanent marker font. If you're just now joining this, this is a joke. Please don't use the permanent marker font, or at least not in this context. Okay, so I have this. I'm also going to make do some transform settings here. Let's do on hover. Okay, so I want it when you hover, it gets bigger. So I'm going to change that. Okay, so I just wanted to make some quick changes here so that when we copy and paste using the keyboard shortcut, copy and paste the styling, we can kind of instantly see how to do that. And so to copy and paste styling, it's Command-Alt-C, or if you're on Mac, it's Command-Option-C. That's the same thing. And so you can come over here, just hover anywhere over. That doesn't have to be over here. If you just hover on the module, hit Command-Option-C or Command-Alt-C, and then you can come over here, and anywhere on here, just hit Command-Option-V, and you'll paste that. Now, one thing that's kind of cool is say you have, a bunch of these. Say you had a lot in here that you wanted to do that for. I'm going to come over here. A kind of a quick way, even quicker way that you can copy and paste styling is once you've copied it, you can leave your fingers on Command Option and then just hover, hit V, V, V without moving your fingers off of Command Option. And it's a really quick and easy way to paste the styling without having to look in, Command Option and press it each time. You leave your fingers on Command Option and then hover, press V, V, V. So that's a super easy way to paste the styling. And so I'm going to look at this on the front end here just so I can see the hover effects, because the hover effects don't really show up on the front end very well. And apparently I didn't copy and paste the transform settings. So I don't know if that's a bug in Divi, and it should be, but yeah, that's what happens when you're doing a live tutorial. Some things don't always happen the way you want. So yeah, that actually might be a bug where it's supposed to copy the transform settings, but didn't. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, transform probably, they don't consider that part of styling, so that could be why it didn't happen. So I'm going to go and do it this way. So yeah, so that is the copy and paste styling for keyboard shortcuts. And so those are what I find to be the most useful keyboard shortcuts getting familiar with. Again, if you hit Shift !Tab, you can refer to all these. You can see there's a lot in here. So as you are building more and more sites with Divi, you'll find yourself doing the same things over and over again, and you'll kind of feel the need for a quicker way of doing it. And so as you kind of get in the routine of things, you can start incorporating these different keyboard shortcuts. I mean, they have keyboard shortcuts for so many different things in here. So like, look at how precise that is. Decrease section padding by 10 pixels, increase module padding by 10 pixels, like very specific things that you can do using the keyboard shortcuts. So I probably want to, learn these. However, if you're the type of person that just loves doing keyboard shortcuts and not having to like open up settings panels and stuff, then like learn these, memorize them, start incorporating a few at a time, because these are huge time savers as you get familiar with them. And if you're like me, as I mentioned at the beginning of this live quick tip, when you're seeing these features come out and it's like, they're there, but to actually make use of them in real world settings is a little bit tricky. And so, you have your way of doing things, you have your workflow, and to start trying to add in new things is not as easy to do, because it's like you have to take a step back in order to take, 5 steps forward. And so you have to kind of slow things down to learn the keyboard shortcuts, learn the different efficiency tools, extend styles, find and replace. And so again, you have to take a step back or 2 steps back in order to take 5 steps, 10 steps forward. But I promise you it's worth it. Kind of the way that I do things is when starting a new project is a great way to start forming new habits. And so when you're kind of engulfed in an existing project, you're kind of in the routine doing things the same. And so I recommend kind of sticking with what you know. But when you start a new project, it's a great time to start adding these different things into your workflow one by one, and getting more familiar with them, because I promise you they will speed up your workflow, making you so much more efficient. And in my opinion, these are the features that really set Divi apart from the competition, whether you're looking at other page builders in WordPress or you're looking at things like Squarespace and Wix and hosted platforms. Like the efficiency tools that Divi has here can really make you a powerhouse in terms of how quickly you can build a site, lay out a website, customize things. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. We'll be doing more of these live Divi quick tips here on the Divi Live Facebook page and the Divi Live YouTube page. If you haven't already, comment in the comments whether or not you are using or you are watching live or you're watching the replay. That's helpful for me to know kind of how many people are watching right when I'm doing it, to be able to track when the best times are to go on live, as well as when people are watching the replay. So if you have any requests or things that you think would be good for me to cover in these live sessions, let me know again in the comments, and then we'll try to incorporate them. We have some cool stuff on the list here that we'll be doing in the coming weeks. Different ways to speed up your Divi website, common Divi issues, and how to fix them. So those are just a couple of the things I have on the list here. I have like a list of like 15 different topics. But again, I love requests. So if you have something that you'd be like, oh, I would love it if someone spent more time on this, then let me know. And then we'll also be I'll also be doing some tutorials and live sessions with some of my own products here at Divi Life. So using Divi overlays and Divi bars, Divi Mega Pro, and so forth. So you can definitely look forward to that. So thanks again for tuning in live or watching the replay, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.